financial problems, elder law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by Thav Gross. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Hi, welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Pat Simasko's back for another week. We're going to carry forward Wilma and Fred's issues.
One of my favorite shows. I was more of a baddie person, though, to be quite honest with you.
And Brian, it's always remind me of Barney Rubble. Good morning, Brian. Nice to see you.
Dude, so handsome.
You know what? Yeah, absolutely.
You weren't here for last week's show.
I clearly have no comment whatsoever at all.
Barney Rubble is a great actor.
David Einstein, good to have you back. At the end of the last show, I promised an update on Dino, the pet dog for the Flintstones.
Dinosaur. Go ahead.
He was 4 years old in 1960, so that means that Dino is 60 years old in human years. As a dinosaur, that translates into
6
1
million.
month. He's 1 month old because dinosaurs lived a long time. I have no idea, but I did the best I could. All right, let's talk about retiree issues and bankruptcy. Headline topic for the show is you can't keep paying until you're broke. And here's the situation.
You can. It's just not really a good idea.
Mom and dad have serious debt issues. They're retired, and their health is in peril as well. That's what we went through with Wilma and Fred. We see this, Brian and I see this all the time. This is what happens. They keep tapping their IRA, they're paying their credit cards, they're making payments on houses or summer homes that are underwater that they're not using, and sometimes they don't walk into our office till all of a sudden they look and the IRA is down to $15,000.
And quite often they're doing another thing. They keep juicing their kids who have a handout.
Very often. And all of a sudden, the bell goes off, and suddenly mom and dad realize, oh my God, we're running out of money. 20 years ago, the bell would have gone off a lot earlier, but when mom and dad get up into their 80s, they're not as sharp. Not everybody, because I know the mom and dads out there that still are sharp are going to say, they don't know what they're talking about, but you see it all the time.
Yeah.
They lose their sharpness, and
Well,
they just get into the pattern of paying the bills.
And I want to just say one thing, because we do a lot of financial planning in the office. It's hitting now more than ever because back in 2008, so many people had a lot of money in their retirement accounts or their investments in the market crash, and they still had to keep spending money. So the chicken's coming home to roost right now because they lost so much back in 2008. If you lose it, and spend it, you don't have it to come back up. That's why it's so important for the retirees to protect that.
And
money.
I would say twice a week you call me when you're in a meeting
my
with a
God.
client talking about estate planning and elder law issues, and you're calling me about their credit card debt and their house underwater problems.
And I'm seeing an incredible increase in seniors coming in to see me with monumental amounts of debt by comparison to what I saw 20 years ago. It's unbelievable. I mean, I see mom and dad retired and they are coming in with $50, $60, $80, $100,000 in credit card debt, and that's regular. That's normal. I mean, it's...
All right, so let's talk about options to deal with it. All right, one of them is bankruptcy is oftentimes an easy option. And keep in mind what we always say on the show. We go through the analysis of what is the most effective, efficient way to eliminate the debt, and with all available tools. Solutions using bankruptcy, solutions outside. But what I always say is Chapter 7, when available, is the fastest, least costly way of eliminating debt. Now, if you don't have a home and you're a retired couple and you have no assets other than say $10,000 in the bank and an IRA, which Brian is protected, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And all you're living on is Social Security plus spending down your IRA, you're an automatic candidate for Chapter 7, aren't you?
Yeah, hands down.
It's
just
So
a
if you got
no-brainer.
$80,000 of credit card debt, you file the Chapter 7 bankruptcy petition, it's discharged in what, 2 months and you're done?
Well, the whole
3
process
months?
takes about 4 months from start to end.
From the time they come in and see you.
Yeah.
There's a few assumptions there, which are quite sometimes red flags. You have to look at what type of transfers occurred that could really put a wrench into the 7. So I know quite often.
Oh, absolutely.
Quite often we have a presentation of that scenario, and then Brian asks the question, which a lot of practitioners don't. Well, when was the last time you transferred a deed? And then
Or gave your kids a gift.
and then you find out, ooh, there's an issue.
Well, the law is pretty clear. You have to look at what you've given away while you were insolvent, or did the giving away render you insolvent? If you give something away, an asset, $10,000, $5,000, a car, doesn't make a difference, and you're still solvent both before and after you give away the asset, it's a transfer. If you give it away and you're insolvent,
Or it makes you insolvent.
or it makes you insolvent, it's a fraudulent transfer.
What's the definition for people like me that doesn't know what insolvent mean? What is the actual definition?
Liabilities exceeding your assets, and also the inability to pay your debts as they come due.
Is that real estate too, or just financial?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So the big question, here's the first rule. Absolutely, and we talk about it all the time, there is no self-planning and then come see the attorney to figure out the way of getting rid of the debt. You don't say, well, I'll just transfer my Corvette to my cousin for $3,000. I'll sell the boat here and I'll give my $50,000 of cash. I'll stick it under the pillow.
Well, if you
and then you walk in and you say, this is what I've done, you've ruined a chance of filing a perfectly clean bankruptcy.
If you self-plan, you're going to cost yourself exceedingly higher fees with attorney's fees.
So if you're thinking about the need to address those issues before you start making mistakes, you need to come in and look at it and let us help you plan it out. But here's another little twist. Social Security cannot be garnished. So sometimes you could have an elderly couple that only has Social Security income coming in and doesn't have any other assets. You don't necessarily need to file a bankruptcy sometimes.
No, you
Sometimes
don't.
you can just keep your money in a safe account that is only Social Security, and even if the creditor takes a judgment, they can't hit you.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
Worth Ave Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
A lifetime of hard work. If you don't have the right plan in place, you can lose your home, your savings, and more. And you didn't come this far to lose everything. Samasco Law wants you to know that laws are changing. Today, the average cost of nursing home care is $85,000 a year. With proper planning, we can help protect your life savings and get you the Medicaid and nursing home benefits you deserve.
How much can you afford to lose? Call Samasco Law today.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
Thav Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Worth Ave Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
Worth Ave Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Fav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Fav Gross today, 888-235-HELP.
All right, welcome back. So when we came up to the break, I was just throwing out there that you can't garnish Social Security. So if you had a situation where mom and dad, Fred and Wilma, don't own a home, they don't have any savings in a savings account, they have an IRA, and they have Social Security income coming in, and they have $80,000 of credit card debt. Brian, what would you do in that case? Would you is it possible to say you don't need a bankruptcy? Just let the creditors take a judgment?
It all depends on where they are in their life, the pressures that
They're
want.
86 and 84.
Okay, you know, a lot of times with I have a client.
Wilma just got back from
You're going to
rehab.
let me finish, or are you going to?
No, I'm not. I'm going to go on to David.
Okay, no
yeah, go ahead.
A lot of times when people are at that age, I just tell them to change their phone number and ignore it, because nobody's ever going to take anything from them.
There's a little risk from the standpoint that they're going to they can file a judgment, they can get a judgment against you, and then you have to make sure that your bank account only has your Social Security income in, and if they go after it, then you'll be able to get it back.
Now, if you have Social Security income and a little bitty pension, a couple $100 a month, and it's all going into the same bank account,
then you got a problem.
then you have a problem, because now you have commingled money, and it's hard to distinguish which money is which, and therefore the creditor can garnish the funds.
What if you have a $1,500 refund coming in your federal tax return?
No, your federal can't be garnished regardless. The only entities that can
If
garnish
you're only
your
on
federal,
Social Security income, you're not going to have a refund.
Right.
State tax.
your state tax refund can be garnished, but your federal can't be. The only people that can take your federal
IRS.
refund are the IRS or the United States government when it comes to student loans and things like that.
Let me change the facts now for Fred and Wilma. We're not going to use last week's facts that we did with you, Pat. We're going to use new facts. This is it. They're 86 and 84. They have a home with $100,000 of equity.
Mm-hmm.
The only income they have is Social Security, and they have an IRA, which they're pulling down and drawing some money off of that. They have credit card debt, $40,000 in mom's name, $40,000 in dad's name, in Fred's name, no joint credit card debt.
Do they live in Michigan?
They live in Michigan.
Let's file a.
Let me tell you first the rest of the facts. The lender is saying, they went and saw a lender, and the lender is telling them, take out a reverse mortgage or go get an equity line of credit and pay off your credit card debt. They're saying because you got $80,000 of credit. This is what the lender's saying. You got $80,000 of credit card debt. You're paying what, 2.5% per month on that. So you're paying $1,500 a month on your credit cards. You can't afford it. I'm going to save you. We're going to refinance your house. We either do a reverse mortgage. We're going to pay off the credit card debt. What do you think of that, Brian?
Well,
This is your chance not to be interrupted.
I
Let me
would-
know what you think.
okay, I think that's bad advice from the lender. What I would tell this client to do is stop taking money out of their IRA, stop paying their credit cards, and file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
How can you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy when you got $100,000 of equity in the home?
Well, there's two assumptions. One, as you said, there's no joint debt. And two, I'm assuming that the house is owned husband and wife.
What do we mean by no joint debt? And yes, that is owned by husband and wife as a tenancy by the entirety.
Okay, which is the normal way a husband and wife would usually own a property in Michigan.
Correct.
Okay, so when you have no joint debt and you're looking at a Chapter 7, you can take state of Michigan exemptions to protect your assets.
As opposed to,
The federal exemptions. We are an opt-in, opt-out state. In
So you get
other
a
words, you
choice.
can choose federal or state. Our state exemptions, for the most part, are not as beneficial to most people as the federal exemptions. However, when you are over the age of 65, the state exemptions have a greater amount of equity you can protect in a house. So a 65-year-old couple or greater can protect $57,000 equity in their home
each?
total.
What do we do about the 100?
Oh, but they're married, right?
Yes.
And the house is owned tenancy by the entireties, and there's no joint debt. there's another exemption called the tenancy by the entireties exemption.
The whole thing.
The house could be worth $1 million, and they could keep the house, file a bankruptcy, discharge the $80,000 for the credit card debt, and go on with their lives.
Okay, let's say that one
What
of the
if-
credit cards was joint.
That was what I was saying. One
Then what do you
Capital
do?
One, they're both joint on for $10,000.
So that's a type of case where you have to employ planning and utilize the tools of financial crisis management.
Go for it.
We're going to do debt resolution on the Capital One account. We're going to settle that account for pennies on the dollar.
Say we settle it for $4,000.
We're going to wait 91 days so that it's not a preference payment.
And now they have no joint debt.
And now we're going to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
That is sweet.
It is.
Now, let's put it in perspective. They filed it, in your scenario, we spent $4,000 to settle the Capital One account. Let's say we spend another $1,500, $2,000 to file the bankruptcy. We've got $6,000 out of pocket.
Yeah, we
Okay.
saved
The house
$74,000.
has no mortgage. It still has $100,000 of value. The real estate guy or the lender wanted to take the house, mortgage it, take $80,000 and give it to the lender, leaving Fred and Wilma with $20,000 equity left in their home, and that whole asset is used up. The difference is not small. The difference is major. And people need to realize that you have to be careful who you're getting your advice from.
You know, one thing I want to make sure people understand. People think that they're joint on a credit card. Most often, one person applied for the credit card and they gave their spouse, made them an authorized user. That is not a joint credit card. So people think, oh, I've got the same credit card in my pocket as my husband does. It's not necessarily a joint account. We examine all the credit reports, do an analysis, and determine what needs to be done.
When we come back from the break, I want to stay right on that and explain to people how to determine that.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
Thav Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
A lifetime of hard work. If you're approaching retirement and don't have the right plan in place, you can lose your home, your investments, and your savings. And you didn't come this far to lose everything. Putting a solid strategy in place with Samasco Law legally protects your assets as well as your wishes. Since a will doesn't cover you medically or financially, Samasco Law goes beyond ordinary asset management protection to safeguard everything you have.
How much can you afford to lose? Call Samasco Law today.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Thav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Thav Gross today, 888-235-HELP.
A lifetime of hard work. If you don't have the right plan in place, you can lose your home, your savings, and more. And you didn't come this far to lose everything. Samasco Law wants you to know that laws are changing. Today, the average cost of nursing home care is $85,000 a year. With proper planning, we can help protect your life savings and get you the Medicaid and nursing home benefits you deserve.
How much can you afford to lose? Call Samasco Law today.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Fav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
All right, let's do announcements before we get back to Fred and Wilma. All right, seminar coming up. We have a seminar coming up on Wednesday, June 22nd, Saving Your Assets from the Nursing Home. Pat, you're going to lead us through the Medicaid issues. We're going to go back to Fred and Wilma. We're going to cover the situation where husband and wife are looking at nursing home, or just one of the spouse, only one is living, a widow in any of the nursing home. Brian, you're going to talk about debt issues at that seminar. I'm going to talk about basic estate planning for the children of the parents that are going into the nursing home. That seminar is Wednesday, June 22nd, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Sign up at thavgross.com, lawandreality.com, or call 888-235-HELP. On Wednesday, July 13th, we have a seminar, 6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. It's a debt seminar. There's no time like debt elimination time. And that's the time
If
of
you
the
start
seminar.
singing, I'm going to throw
It's
stuff at you.
6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. Hopefully, maybe we'll have some music in the background as this announcement was made. Focusing on all the ways in which you can preserve future income for you and your family so you've got something to retire with. Attendees on that seminar get a free copy of my book, Dump Your Debt. Sign up at thavgross.com, lawandreality.com. And also go to our websites. We've got free reports. Pat's got a Social Security report, an IRA report. We've got a report from me on using Reg X, how to save your home and stop foreclosure. And we also have a report that we've put together, 14 sources of funding for new startup businesses in Metro Detroit beyond using the commercial banks.
You forgot something.
What did I forget?
You forgot to tell the people that they can also sign up by calling our offices at 888-235-4357.
You're right, I did forget, but it did go on the screen as you were looking
I
at
understand.
the
There's
show.
no screen in front of me at
That's
the
a good
moment.
point. And I also want to remind our viewers to listen to us Tuesdays noon to 1, 6 to 7 p.m. on WCHB 1200 AM 99.9 FM. That's for Law and Reality Live. And on Thursdays 3 to 4, Law and Reality Now with Cliff Russell on 9:10 a.m. Now, back to Fred and Wilma. All right, so Brian, I'm going to change the facts a little bit. It's all joint debt. The $80,000 of credit card debt. They still have $100,000 of equity in their home. If I understand what you were telling us before the break, they're not going to be able to use that automatic, complete, total exemption under state law, but they could still use the $57,000 exemption.
That is correct.
But they got $100,000 of equity in the home.
Well,
so what's the outcome going to be?
If
Kind of jump to the end.
Okay. If they file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, at that point, they're either going to A, have their house sold out from under them by a Chapter 7 trustee.
Nobody wants that.
Who's going to write them a check for $57,000 and take the remainder and distribute it to their creditors. Or B, they're going to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
The remainder of the $57,000 versus the $100,000 less selling costs.
Correct.
All right, so
But,
nobody wants to hear that they're going to lose their home. That's not our goal.
$43,000 is going to
Does
disappear.
that house automatically get sold, or can you stop that from happening?
Well,
I mean, I don't like that outcome at all.
I understand. Now, if the trustee is going to sell the house, an option within the bankruptcy is to come to the trustee and say, okay, we would prefer to keep our house. We would like to buy back our own interest in the non-exempt portion of our home.
All right, now that's making sense. That's what we would do, correct? If we filed it, we wouldn't
As
file the
long as-
bankruptcy and say, goodbye house.
No, unless the client wants to let the house go, and they don't in this case. So what you have to do is be prepared to come up with some number between $0 and $43,000, which is the equity position in the house.
Okay.
In all likelihood,
I don't
you're-
think it's 40. I don't think it's 43,000. You got
57
less selling
plus
costs.
43
less
is
selling,
100.
Less selling costs
So,
and negotiating skills.
Right, you're negotiating a settlement. The trustee isn't going to get the real estate commission and all that other stuff. So you got some room to negotiate.
So let's say that you think it's possible in those numbers the trustee would take 20,000 and call it a day.
Probably more like 25 to 30, but yeah.
All right, so where your options on getting that 25 to 30 would either be to go to the IRA or get an equity line on the home.
It's going to be difficult to
If
get
you're
an
in a
equity
Chapter
line
se-
if you're in a Chapter 7.
Seven.
So you have to have those resources available to you beforehand. It might be as simple as going to your kids and saying, I need you to pony up.
Kids actually loan money to parents? I never heard that one before.
It's happening more and more these days, actually.
It's called an IOU, but
Yeah.
for some reason children have a short-term memory.
Yeah.
They always talk about how the parents lose their short-term memory,
Yeah.
but when it comes to the kids helping out the parents, I think the kids sometimes have
Yeah.
the short-term memory.
But at the end of the day,
that's the biggest fear that I have.
there is an opportunity still to get rid of $57,000 worth of the debt and settle the remaining issue of 43 down to something reasonable.
Which is better than refinancing the house and taking the whole $80,000 and paying off the credit cards in full and
And-
wiping out all of your equity.
And by settling the debt or settling with the trustee, there's no taxable implication on the forgiveness of the debt. So all the debt that's forgiven is there's no tax on it. You may have to pay some tax when you're taking money out of your IRA at your applicable federal rate.
Let me shift it a little bit, so bankruptcy is still a viable option there. And if Wilma and Fred came in, we would analyze this down to the nth degree to make sure we had the right solution. Another one in play would be maybe we should do debt resolution, because on $80,000 of credit card debt, we can settle it for around 35%, which would be about $28,000. Attorney fees in that situation at 8.5% of the debt, which is what we would charge, would be about $6,800. The total settlement cost would be about $34,800. You're still saving $45,200 as opposed to paying off the credit cards by leveraging and refinancing your house. You would refinance, you'd use the money to settle with the credit card companies rather than to pay them off. The big thing people need to know.
And the benefit there would be that, of course, it would be possibly be a reverse mortgage that would have no payment on it.
Right, in terms of getting your money out. Here's the thing that people need to realize. Wilma and Fred are 86 and 45, and 86 and 84. They've got an $80,000 credit card problem. The notion of paying off the full $80,000 to preserve their credit score is insanity. They don't need a credit score at 86 and 84. They need money to live on. So the solution that we look at is, what is the way of getting rid of the credit card debt in the cheapest possible manner? Lenders do not think that way. They think in terms of refinancing and paying off. That's things Wilma and Fred cannot afford to do. You got 20 seconds to make a final comment. It looked like you wanted to say something, David.
Lenders know exactly what's going on, and they tell you what's in their best interest.
Yeah, they're not your friends. They sound like they're your friend on the phone, but they're not your friend.
You got it. We're your friends.
I hate the banks.
Have a great week. We'll be back next week.